Alex, are you crying? What's happening here?
I just love everybody so much. Okay. All right. Streams are hooked up at YouTube, so we're going to get this party started in 3,
Don't cross the streams, man.
2. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Comic Book Club. Woo! I'm Alex.
I'm Justin.
I'm Pete.
And we are coming to you live from a couple of places on the internet. We're live over on YouTube. We're live on Crowdcaster. Maybe you're listening to us later. iTunes, Android, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn.
You don't
Lots
have to
of
plug other things. Just say, wherever you get your, what I mean?
Wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah.
Oh, you got some edits 15 years into the show, Pete?
I do. I have notes. Actually, while we're talking about notes, let me just take this moment. Hey, Justin, I heard about your podcast, Why the Zalbs, man. Can I be like a guest or maybe co-host that with you? Because that would be awesome. That would be fun.
I don't know exactly what you mean, but I'm here for it. If you want to do a podcast where you and I talk about Alex.
It's called Why the Zalbs, man. This is a callback from a bit you were doing on another podcast.
Oh, wait, were you listening to our Why the Last Man podcast, the podcast that you've generally avoided, Pete?
Is that Why the Cast, man?
Oh, well, thank you. This is a great time to plug. We had a great chat with the showrunner of Why the Last Man on our Why the Cast Man podcast. She talked all about the first season, adapting the comic book, as well as hopes for season 2. Gave some great info about what could happen in the second season. And also, I did bring this up because it would have been nonsense if we were talking about it, but I felt like she was almost speaking directly to you at points, Pete, because she was talking about how some people were very put off by the beginning of the season being all about a pandemic where a lot of people died, and felt like, it's the sort of thing, it's more bingeable, that if you get through half of the season, go, whoa, hold on, this is the comic book, this is what we like, this is what we're into, then you might be more into it. So what do you say, Pete? You're going to go back and watch Why the Last Man helped save the show?
I definitely want to try to go back with and we watch it for sure. I mean, I feel bad. It was one of my favorite comics of all time, but it's a lot. It's a lot. Right now.
You should definitely watch.
Yeah, you definitely should watch it. She talked about how the viewership was just missing one person, and that's why it got canceled.
Oh, that's too bad. You do what you can. You know what I mean? Justin, I can't believe you blew me off on that. I thought for sure like you would let me guest or co-host with you, but that's fucked up, man. It's real fucked up.
Do you think we have enough material to do a podcast dedicated to us binge watching Alex for the last 16 years?
That is not. I was hoping that we would just complain about Zelbs the whole time. I thought it would be fun.
You could do a recap of my life every week. I'd be up for that. There's not much going on other than these podcasts, though.
Let me be honest. I feel like I sort of do a recap of your life every week already on this podcast. So I feel pretty good.
Now, let's move on to something else. Should we talk about the drink you keep toasting, Justin? We have our curated drink by Brett Macris, our CBC chef. He has been picking out drinks on patreon.com/comic book club from the Gotham City cocktail book. This week's is the Bloodhaven. I never know exactly how to pronounce that, whether that's Bloodhaven or
I think it's just Bloodhaven.
Well, look at you with the fancy ice cubes there. You don't do regular ice cubes?
It specifically says make it with a large ice cube. It's like a Negroni with dry vermouth instead of sweet vermouth.
Is that like a Death Star ice cube you got in there? Like what?
This? Yeah. No, it's just a regular round ice cube.
That's right. Pete, when you live in Brooklyn, much like the Grinch's heart, your ice cubes grow 10 times more. And that's just the size they are from here on out.
Wow.
Yeah. Good stuff, though. Really like this cocktail. Good choice for Brett.
Very good cocktail.
Yes, if you want to you got a Mountain Dew, Pete?
It's been a rough day.
Well, drinking that Mountain Dew, it's about to get rougher, buddy. So,
yeah.
Last thing to mention before we get to our great guests that we have on the show today. Now, we've been asking you guys for the past couple of weeks, if you want to leave a comment on iTunes with a question for later in the show, we're happy to answer it. Or alternately, if you want to challenge us to read a book and review a book right here on the podcast, we'll do it too. Got a bunch of great comments on iTunes over the past week, but I did want to read one off at the beginning here. This is from Conanach on iTunes. I've been listening to CBC every week for well over a decade now. Hands down, my
Whoa.
favorite podcast.
Wow.
Warning, do not listen while driving. I've narrowly avoided multiple car accidents while laughing at, with these guys during my commute.
Please don't get into car accidents.
I'm writing this from beyond the grave because I've died. No, he didn't say that.
Well,
anyway,
we're
guys.
always screaming, stop, stop.
Pull over, man. Don't.
Yeah, and
Don't
Pete, you
hurry,
got to
Lyle.
cut out with the wee-oo sounds that you do on every podcast because that freaks people out. Anyway, guys, could you review at least the first volume of Alan Moore's Swamp Thing? One of my favorite runs of all time. So there you go. We got a challenge before us.
We got
gotta
called
review it.
out.
We got called out.
Because
We gotta review
Zalvin
it.
let it leak. Our big secret.
Not my big secret. I've read it.
I
Yes,
know
you've read it.
We know.
Jumped
Pete and I
into-
both have the secret shame of we haven't read Alan Moore's Something. So here we go. We've been challenged by Conan Natch. We are going to do it. We will review
Zalvin,
it
buy
right here on the
a
show.
copy, send it to me so I can read it, and I appreciate it.
Oh, because you don't support comic book shops? It's been a hard time for them over the past 2 years, Pete.
you handle the money. That's why.
Wow,
Okay,
big
baby.
admission.
I'll get you a sweet comic book.
Oh, thank you.
Where's
Thank
my
you.
allowance, Alex? Come on, I did all my chores. I did all my podcasts.
I did all my podcasts.
Sure.
I want a comic book.
I'll buy you a graphic novel, baby. Yeah! Okay. Why don't we welcome our guest here into the stream? He is a prolific writer and has a new book from Image Comics coming out tomorrow called Newburn. He's Chip Zdarsky, and this book is amazing. I'm very excited to chat about it. Chip, welcome back to the show. Hello.
Oh, are you guys fucking done?
Wow, this guy.
Talking about your cocktails and your TV shows.
That's fair.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's very fair.
Sorry about
I love the artifice of like I just popped in right now instead of just being backstage this whole time, just being like, why am I not talking about this stuff with these guys?
We can
Your
talk about it.
special time for the three of you. Not
We
to
gotta
interrupt
connect.
it. I get it.
Yeah.
We're trying to
Make me feel
preserve
like
the
an outsider, it's
theatrical. Yeah.
Yeah, theatrical,
Save your
exactly.
opinions. Well,
Yeah. Let's talk about Newburn. Let's get
Yeah.
into that because the book is great. It comes out tomorrow. So I was about to do the pitch for it, but
I love it. Go.
Okay, it's
sell it
well.
to him.
No, the reason that I'm like a little, I want to hold back is I don't know if the pitch, like what Newburn is, who he is. Do you consider that a spoiler, or is that part of the pitch for the book?
I think it's part of the pitch. There's enough kind of things that unfold in the comic that people will still be surprised by, hopefully.
So you describe him at a certain point book. He's a detective who works for all the mobs. He's
Oh,
basically the
fuck,
guy.
don't give that away.
Oh no!
Oh my god.
Oh my god!
What
I know,
amateur
I
hour.
ruined it.
That's the whole thing.
Oh!
you know, we
Well-
rarely get someone as a guest on the show who can really burn Alex down in this way, and it's beautiful.
Image Comics calls you tomorrow. Is like we were going to sell 100,000 copies, except they really did last
Still
night.
had the whole premise.
Yes. But I love this idea. I love this character. I love the way the book unfolds over the course of it. And like you said, this central idea that he works for multiple mobs is something that plays into the mystery, but it's only a small part of the book. Where did it start with that pitch? Did it start with that idea, or was there another place the character began?
I mean, it started with the idea of working with Jacob. Like this is going back maybe 4 or 5 years ago at the Toronto Comic Arts Festival. He was here with his dad, Sean, and he's just a youngster, just kind of fresh out of illustration school, doing his illustrations. And I saw his stuff and was like, wow, he's really good. And maybe a month later, I ordered one of his mini comics online,
nice.
and when it showed up, I was just like, oh, I got to get my hooks in this young man.
Oh, nice. It's like an exploitive thing.
So
Yeah,
you
no,
just
that's exactly
prey
it.
on new talent, is what you're saying? That's the
I've
secret
been-
to success.
I've been friends with Edward Baker for like 10, 15 years now, and it angers me, his relationship with Sean Phillips. Even if I casually say something about maybe doing a thing with Sean, he just the fangs and the claws come out. So I'm just like, well, I got to get in on the ground floor of this Jacob kid because he's unbelievable.
It's good.
So
His
that-
book, That Texas Blood, I was a huge fan of that book as well.
It's
really
so good, and I hadn't even seen that because he hadn't started that when we started talking about this. but yeah, it started with a conversation with him because I was like, the way it goes with most artists, I started with, what do you want to draw? Like, where do your interests lie?
Ah.
And so he just kind of gave me some locations, really, and things. Like, he wanted to keep it really real and grounded, and like a city. And he wanted, I remember specifically, he said, "Oh, I wouldn't mind like part of it in a prison." So I'm like, okay, all right, sure. And so I just started to think about it, and I wanted to do a detective story for a while, and it's just as cheesy as it sounds. Like I was just walking down the street when the idea kind of hit me of this guy who was on retainer to all the mob families. I think I was just thinking of like United Nations inspectors going into like war-torn countries,
Right.
and like you're not allowed to mess with them. They're going into like determine what's gone wrong. So as soon as I thought of that and transposed that onto the idea of a private detective, like everything just kind of started to fall into place, and I was able to squeeze the prison stuff into issue 3, 4. So Jacob was pretty happy about that. But yeah, it just kind of came to me, and Jacob was all on board, and I knew he was doing that Texas Blood. But I assumed it was a miniseries. So he starts drawing Newburn, and all of a sudden I'm just like, oh, that's still going too. Wait, what the hell? How is he doing this? And he's
busy.
he's coloring his dad's work as well. Like he's
Wow.
the colorist on all those books.
Wow.
And he's just that fast and just that good. Like it's unbelievable. He
When
does
you're
everything
young,
on
you
it
don't
too.
need to sleep.
There is that too. Like I always find working with artists. The writer part of me loves how great they are. The artist part of me is furious because he's so good and he's so fast, and he's kind of an artist after my own heart because he does everything, which is kind of what I did on Sex Criminals and what I do on my own stuff. Like he letters it, colors it, designs it all. Well, actually, I do the design on this, but yeah.
Those gritted teeth compliments you're giving him.
yeah. And he's like 23 or whatever. I don't know. Drives me nuts.
Was there, and maybe this is more on Jacob's side, but I'm curious if you've talked about this. Was there anybody in real life, like an actor or something, that would inspire the look of Newburn? Because he feels so old Hollywood iconic to me without specifically being anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, not really. I think I described him as just like kind of a more weathered, older John Hamm, like in Mad Men, just where like
old Hamm,
where he could just like cut you down with like one line, you know. I don't know. I mean, Jacob's much like myself. He uses a lot of kind of photo reference and models, so I don't know who his specific reference is for Newburn. I know his dad uses like it's a series of books of photos from like I think the 70s, which was like specifically for artists, and it's one of those things where like I remember I saw those books in an illustration studio like a couple decades ago, and I started to spot Sean Phillips faces in it. Like, oh my god, that's crazy! And then I started to spot Frank Miller faces in it, and then other artists too. And then I realized, oh, this is the thing. Like these books are being used like by all these artists. So maybe Jacob's got those from his dad too, and he's got somebody in there that looks just like Easton Newburn.
Yeah. Like
That's
you were
cool.
saying, this character is so taciturn. He's so interior at points. Does that put more pressure on the rest of the characters to deliver the dialogue throughout and sort of fill in those spaces?
Yeah, because like I don't know, with a lot of my writing, you either have the character like quip a lot, say things out loud a lot, or I fall back on like with Daredevil, like I fall back on like the inner monologue captions, right, to kind of set the tone and to give reader information. So it's a little bit challenging trying to like follow the rules that I've set out with Newburn, but yeah, it's. I feel like he doesn't really need to say much. Like he's kind of like in each story, he kind of gains the information. And at the end, he's like, "All right, here's how I figured it out." You know, it kind of follows that kind of procedural kind of template for him.
Also,
did you have to do a lot of research for this? It feels reading this, I was like, "Oh, this is a real understanding of crime that I feel like I don't have."
Are you asking me if I'm a criminal? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, I guess that's a sort of a slow way of being like, how much crime are you committing now? How do you balance
as
that with your writing?
research?
Um, a lot of it, I mean, the research kind of came a little bit later. Like as we kind of go on and kind of get deeper into the different crime families, I would research a lot about the crime families in New York, and read books and kind of online articles on different kind of factions, and then fictionalizing them because I don't want to be murdered.
That
You know?
definitely changed the names. Change a
Yeah,
couple
yeah.
names in there.
So I mean, a lot of the crimes are kind of based loosely on some real crimes, as we kind of go through. But it's fun kind of writing these kind of mysteries. Like in issue 2, in the next issue, it kind of revolves around an arson. So I had to study arson and like how they determine the point of exactly how to determine the point of origin of a burn and what kind of burn it would be. So writing these kind of books is fun because you're kind of like you're solving it backwards. Like I know who did it when I start writing it, and then I kind of have to like figure out the pieces that they can solve to actually get to that point. So that part's been a lot of fun, and also the different thing about this one is it's a 16-page format. So I'm so used to writing like 20-page or DC 21, 22-page. To condense it into the 16 pages is super challenging, but it makes it feel brisk, which I like.
Have you had to cut a lot because of that? Have you been sort of overshooting it because you're more used to the other format?
A little bit, yeah. The first couple of issues were hard. Like my first pass would almost always end up at 20, and I'm like, it's an image book, and I could probably get away with it because you can, I learned this on Sex Criminals. If we need the extra page, we just give ourselves the extra page. That's fine. But I wanted I didn't want to overburden Jacob because I knew he was doing other work. But also I want to keep that challenge and go well, no, this story can be told in 16 pages. Now I just got to figure out how to do it. There are a few tips and tricks that I picked up from other writers, much better writers over the years. Usually when you write a scene, you don't quite realize that you don't need the first few panels.
Right.
Like you can cut a lot and just kind of jump closer to the action to kind of keep it moving. But everyone likes to start off with a couple of guys walking down the hallway, drinking a cup of coffee and talking about a thing before they get to what you need to get to.
Well, you need every character to hit an alarm clock to start the issue.
Yeah, exactly.
So that
exactly, and then they get up and they stretch their arms, as we all do when we wake up.
Naturally.
Yeah. So once you cut that stuff out, all of a sudden the pace gets a lot more brisk. Yeah.
I was a movie I love is Michael Clayton, and I was catching some vibes in here. Now that movie, it's like a character who is doing sort of bad business.
Yeah,
that's a movie, and by the end of the movie, he ends up being a hero, or he does some heroic things. This is a series. How are you gonna? He's doing bad things. How does he end up? Yeah. How is he going to be a hero issue in and issue out?
All right, I'll tell you exactly what happens.
Oh, this is great.
Well, I just mean that to me is a writing challenge of being how do I stride that line a lot?
Well, it's funny because I've written 7 issues of this, but also I've written the first draft of a TV pilot for it. And so with that one, the kind of notes I get are just hey, is he a hero? Because we kind of need him to be a bit of a hero. So I'm dropping more stuff into the TV pilot that I was going to wait to drop in the comic. But ultimately, he's keeping everything in check. If he wasn't doing this job, there'd be gang wars, there'd be murders, there'd be a lot more kind of flare-ups of violence without him kind of keeping everyone in check. So I think there's a part of him that justifies what he does in terms of the bigger picture,
So wait, has this already been picked up for TV, or is this just sort of on spec?
No, it got picked up. It was kind of a weird thing where over the pandemic, Jacob and I we finished 3 issues, and I showed them to my agent, and he was like, "Oh my god, this is perfect for TV." He had weird dollar signs in his eyes and the tongue coming out.
Oh boy!
Just an agent.
I've only
Yeah.
ever gotten an agent to get cent signs in his eyes.
Aruka sense.
Yeah. That is great.
But yeah, so it kind of like quickly kind of made its way around, and like we got a deal like rather fast without even really pitching it to anyone, which was nice because we just kind of showed a bunch of people like, oh, here's 3 issues of this thing, and then it was kind of up to them to kind of bid against each other and like get the rights to it. Because I've heard horror stories, like I've never done it myself. Like on Sex Criminals, I let Matt handle all of that. But you hear all these stories about like, you know, having to pitch to people and like put together your PowerPoint presentation and stuff. I'm just like, oh, I just don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And like, luckily I didn't have to for this. You know,
That's amazing.
Yeah. So everything happened quickly, and then now I got to kind of figure out how to write a pilot, which is not as easy as I thought it was going to be. So that's fun. I never really had ambitions to do that, which is kind of part of it. Like I got this agent years ago, and he was like, "So you know, I can get you writing on this show or that show, or you could do this." I'm like, I don't want to do that. I like comics. But with this, it was just like,
all right, call me in 10 years.
Yeah, I know. But with this one, it was just like, I think maybe it was partly just pandemic related. I was just like, oh, I kind of want to see if I can do it, right? Like see if I have it in me. The answer is probably not. Unfortunately.
Well, I hope so. I do really think like one of the cool things about this character is how he kind of like moves. It definitely kind of like this like guy who's been there before, kind of above the law, between two worlds. And what's really impressive is the way that comes through in the comic as well. It's not something you kind of like, you know, hope shows up on the page. It's really impressive the way this guy kind of like moves throughout the world, and it's a little different, which really kind of draws you to this like, who is this guy? What is going on here? It's pretty cool.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is just Jacob's character acting too. He's so good at like making him like this kind of imposing presence, even if he's in a room with people that should be more imposing. You know? Yeah.
Well, talk a little bit about the rest of the characters, because we only meet a couple of them in this issue, but you have such a strong central figure. How do you flesh out the rest of the world there?
I mean, yeah, it's the rest of the world's kind of there to help move the plot along and to give a bit more kind of, I guess, character moments, because Newburn doesn't have a lot of them himself. I like the idea that everyone he kind of runs into or has in his life, he still butts heads with. Like, we have his ex-partner Casey, so there's a whole story there as to the fact that he's an ex-cop and what does that mean, and the fact that she's helping him out kind of in exchange for every once in a while, you know, throw her a bone so she can, like, you know, close some cases. The young detective that's her partner now, Robert, who's kind of the intro to the world character a little bit, because he's just kind of finding out about this guy's deal the same way the reader is. I like the idea of somebody just being like, what? Like, this shouldn't be. This is wrong. And everyone's just kind of cool with this. His driver, Henry, is kind of just briefly in issue 1, but as we kind of go on, you kind of understand his role in Newburn's life a bit more, and he brings a bit more of a lightness to the world. Emily, who we meet here, I don't want to spoil anything, but she obviously becomes kind of a key figure in his life. And then, one of the cool things is, I think it's around issue 3, we really kind of get into the crime families.
Ooh,
which
nice.
is a lot of fun, like kind of setting that up and how they interact with each other, and what their feelings are about Newburn, depending on where they've entered the story. So it's one of the cool things about doing like these creator-owned comics is kind of building the world as you go. With Marvel and DC, you've got the world. Like, I know what Gotham City is like.
Yeah.
It's bad. I don't know if you heard the news. It's not a good city.
News.
Or Marvel's New York. Like you kind of understand these worlds already and you're playing with them, but here we get to kind of like, oh, hey, wouldn't it be cool if there's this element and that element and these kind of characters? So that part's been a lot of fun.
What's cool about this world is like all the edges are fuzzy for everyone, basically. Like, and that kind of push pull you can be doing, basically everywhere. I feel like it gives you so much sort of freedom and runway to go anywhere with this.
Yeah, so I mean, so far it's been a ton of fun. I'm hoping to kind of keep Jacob drawing as long as I can before he realizes he can do better.
Aw.
Oh, no, he can't. Hey, he can't do better. Okay,
he can't do better than you.
Yeah,
Ed Brubaker will come along and like, Sean's starting to get a little sick, and all of a sudden Ed's got his claws into Jacob. I'm like, oh god.
Sean threw a knee. You're up.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a little bit of a swerve away from this, but still talking about Image Comics. One of the big news items of this week, of course, was that the Image comic workers are forming a union. I know, God forbid. Is that anything that because you've done Image Comics books before, you're doing one now, is that anything you've started to broach the subject with them about? Is there any support they're looking from writers or artists or...
I have had no communication with. I mean, I talked to one of my buddies at Image when I saw the news, just to see like, hey, what's going on?
Hey, what does this mean?
Yeah, and like they were one of the people who didn't know about any of this. So, and I'm not talking higher ups. Like I'm talking like the kind of on the production side of things. But no one's. I mean, there's been no statement from Image to the creators. Unless I've been left off that list, which would not surprise me. And I haven't had any kind of talks with anyone there. Like, obviously, all the kind of the writers and the artists are all like, we're all in the back rooms being like, "Oh, did you hear? What do you think? What should we do? What's going on?" I will say that I'm pro-union, and I also see how hard they work for how little money and the amount of time that is kind of required of them. But that goes the same for Marvel, frankly. Like, you know, I've heard a lot of horror stories over the past decade about like how little some staff get paid and how many hours they have to work while, you know, for the most part living in New York City, which is impossible. And like all these companies ultimately prey on the fact that we love comics.
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
Creators do the work, even if the pay isn't that good. You know, people that work within the companies do the work, even if the pay and the benefits aren't good. You know, there's always the danger because, like, oh, okay, then the company fires everyone because there's a lineup of people willing to do these jobs for almost nothing, which is super, super unfortunate. So, I mean, I wish the Image workers well, and I'll support them any way I can. I think ultimately, like, Image is so pro-creator. Like, it was started by creators because Marvel was taking all the money. So now we have a situation where probably the result is going to be some Image creators are going to have to like maybe make less money off their books in order to like help finance people having living wages at Image, which I think is totally fair. I don't know if it means like title cut or what the thresholds are going to be. I don't know. I'm getting in the weeds a little bit here, but ultimately I just want the workers to be fairly compensated for their time.
Yeah. Do you see, I mean, this is asking you very much to prognosticate, but if they are successful and this does continue and it seems progressive, is it the sort of thing you could see comic book writers unionizing as well?
That's a lot trickier because there are laws against it because it's price setting. You know, there are always, I mean, like, I don't know, since I started doing comics, there are always discussions every few years. There's always somebody who's kind of like, you know, shaking the cage a little bit and going like, oh, what if we join this union, or what if we join that union? And and like those are all possibilities, but it's a little bit like wrangling cats. And the problem is still essentially the same, which is the lineup of people who are willing to do it for less. And also comics don't make that much money. Like, ultimately, like, people think, you know, they'll see like issue whatever of Batman will sell 100,000 units and whatever. Okay, well, they by the time that money gets divvied up in the production, the editors, the lawyers who work there, the salespeople that work there, like there's not. I don't think there's actually a lot of money in the actual production of comics. It's the IP, really.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if you generate a character like Miles Morales, and all of a sudden, like, oh, okay, the money we're sinking into this makes
There's some
sense.
value there. Yeah.
Yeah, like, you know, the market's always just kind of holding on by a thread. I don't think there's a lot of people kind of getting rich off of it. But again, that being said, you can probably stand to divvy up the money a little bit better.
Yeah. I mean, on the same note, you've been experimenting with Substack, right? Which is does feel like a very specific way for creators to take control of their own destiny.
Yeah.
How has that been working out so far? There was a lot of fuss and hand-wringing when it first came out, but it seems like, as always, but it seems like people are actually trucking along and experimenting with things. So how's it been working out for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's been great. I mean, the only downside is just how quickly it all happened. Like the conversations happened in the summer, and next thing we knew, like a couple months later, we're launching. And I think a lot of us are just like, okay, well, we need to make comics. Like,
like there's gotta feed this machine we built.
Yeah. There's no time, but it's such a great opportunity that a bunch of us dug in, and there's a lot more to come too. Like, I know kind of the other names that are kind of working on their Substacks before launching them. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Like the fact that a company's willing to kind of like pay some money to have us just kind of make our own stuff and kind of create a little home for ourselves online has been wonderful. Like, you know, I enjoy the internet as much as anyone, but frankly, the social media gets a bit too much, and being able to kind of pull away from that and having a bit of a walled garden where I'm like, if you want to yell at me, you have to pay $7 a month. Guess what? Nobody does that. You're paying the $7 a month. You're going there to be like, oh, like I have a question about Daredevil or the coloring process or whatever. And that's fun and engaging. I've quite enjoyed having that little oasis.
We do have a question here in the comments. This is from Derek Mainhart. Says, any chance for some physical copies of Captara?
Yeah, I mean, that's the plan. I just don't know what kind of format it's going to be in, like whether or not we kind of continue to do them as the single issues, or if we just do the like a second trade of it to complement the first one that was put out years ago. I'm leaning towards single issues because there were a bunch of people that collected the single issues, and it'd probably be nice for them to like, for their OCD to have that, you know, format continue. But also part of me is also like, well, you know, trades are kind of the future, collections are the future, so maybe we should just do that. But yeah, for sure, absolutely, we're going to put it out in some sort of print format. And the same goes for public domain, which is the one that I've been writing and drawing there.
Yeah, awesome. On the other end of the spectrum, as we have been talking about Marvel, and as you mentioned, you're also still working on Daredevil, which is awesome. I think it was the last issue. There were several Daredevils and several Bullseyes.
I know. It's like I'm running out of ideas. Like, put in another Daredevil.
If you like one Bullseye, buckle up. I got more.
Wait till you meet the Kingpins.
I mean, to that note, like, do you still feel like the story is always going to be about Matt Murdock, or do you feel like it's branched out enough that it's about multiple characters at the same time?
I mean, if you kind of look at my runs from the beginning, it's never really just been about Matt Murdock. Like, Cole North and Wilson Fisk were kind of really integral in the early issues, and Fisk's storyline especially continuing on.
Love story arc going on right now.
I know. And then like the Elektra of it all, like I knew she was going to become Daredevil, but I also didn't realize how much I'd enjoy her being Daredevil, and so that's kind of like enabled me to dig in a bit more with her story. It's an ensemble kind of thing. It's funny. I'm going to be doing like a mini class for Scott Snyder's Substack thing about character arcs, character development. And, you know, I think we were going to look at Daredevil, but I'm like, but I don't want to do Matt Murdock. I want to do Wilson Fisk. Like, I want to talk about that because Matt Murdock has obviously been the sole focus of Daredevil as a title. And he's gone through every conceivable high and low, that it's kind of hard to find like a new angle on it. Like even I'm rehashing Frank Miller, and I'll absolutely, cop to it. Like the first 20 issues is him being broken down and then built back up. Like that's Born Again.
Well, I mean,
but what I like about
it's
it,
storytelling,
and I did it in 20.
But your take's different because your spotlight is not on Daredevil. Your spotlight widened out to see everybody watching him. Because honestly, in this most recent issue, he's showing up and being like, "Hey, what have you guys been doing here without me? I was over here. You guys know I was in jail." And everyone's like, "Sorry, we're busy here, dude. We're all there. Get out of here."
Well, that's the thing. Like everything's been done to the character, so you have to like kind of find just your new angle, your new twist to it. Like he's been to prison. So what was the new angle, the twist here? The twist is, he went as Daredevil this time, and he wanted to go, and he sees the flaws in the system this time around a bit more so than he did before. Because even with that storyline, I knew it was coming from issue 1, like where he was going to be, and I was just waiting for people to be like, "What? You're doing that again?" I'm like, well, first of all, it was done 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and second of all, we're doing a different thing with it.
What I like about it is he's sort of the begrudging leader of a team of Daredevils now, and he has to like that feels so new. I've never seen that. I think.
Yeah, or maybe he's not the leader.
Yeah, but it's even worse.
Well, something that really struck me in the last issue, seeing Elektra as Daredevil and enjoying your take on that character so much, is I was thinking about other reinventions that we've talked about a lot on the show, but things like when Bucky became Cap or when Dick Grayson became Batman. But this feels different, and I think a lot of why it feels different is Matt Murdock is still around. So it doesn't even necessarily feel like, well, this is the new Daredevil so much as this is a new take on Elektra trying to figure it out, what does it mean while I'm wearing this Daredevil costume, and that feels so fresh and exciting.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I've had a lot of fun with it. I'm just like, one of my favorite parts of this whole process was the fact that we kept it a secret too. Like there was no like teasing of it. There's no like reveal in like New York Times or whatever before we did it. Like I convinced Marvel to just be like, hey, let's let the readers actually enjoy picking up the issue and going up to the car or whatever, and then hitting that point and going like, what? Like that was a lot of fun that day.
That's old school comics.
What's interesting to you about Typhoid Mary as well as a character? Because it's so interesting to have her thrown into this run.
Yeah, like I've gone on record many a time and stated that Ann Nocenti and John Romita Jr.'s run of Daredevil is my favorite run, and Typhoid Mary is just like a huge part of that. Like the way she manipulates Matt and Fisk during that run is it's beautiful storytelling, and super sexy. Like it's weird. Like there's a fight scene in that run between like her and Fisk, and then like she sets his jacket on fire and he takes it off and he slaps her and she slaps him, and next thing you know they're doing it. I'm just like, what? As 14-year-old me was just like,
oh whoa, like, this is possible.
I think this is the hottest thing I've ever seen. And I like the fact that over the years, like any character, she's had her highs and her lows and her mixed relationships with Fisk especially. But planting her in the early issues of Daredevil as this nun, and then kind of revealing that was Fisk trying to take care of her, that was also pretty satisfying to see people freak out when it was revealed. And yeah, her and Fisk kind of need each other. I think the longer I was writing it, the more I kind of saw a clearer path for the two of them and what their individual stories were. Her trying to get better, him trying to figure out what a life of contentment is, and them kind of realizing it's each other by the end of 35. It was pretty awesome.
And it's romantic smooth sailing from now on, right?
It's all fine.
Both retire.
Yeah, it's not like we have an event where Fisk loses his mind. It's fine.
I feel like so much of Daredevil is always him hurting other characters and just like trying to take care of everybody. And it feels like your run is like, you know what? These characters can handle themselves. What if we just let them? And that's where I feel like the real power is, like you're talking about.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Before we let you go, what else is going on? You always have a lot of other titles that you're working on. You've got
just a second.
Yeah.
Just a second. I'm going to pull open the sheet.
All right.
I've got
Okay. Wow, it seems
Well, I know
daunting.
you've got Spider
Even
Shadow,
pulling the
right?
sheet open, even pulling the sheet open feels like a stress.
No, it really is. Like I've designed a chart with everything and where I have to be and what's going on.
How are you doing on the chart? You doing okay?
No, it's bad. It's bad. All right, I'm gonna go through the list. So Captara, which I'm loving. Kagan's drawn the hell out of it. Public Domain, which is the one that I'm writing and drawing, which obviously takes up most of my day, which is a stupid move on my part. Newburn's chugging along. Jacob's drawing issue 7. It's awesome. The All Nighter is the one I'm doing with Comixology with Jason Liu.
Yeah.
First 2 issues of that just came out. Superhero vampire fun. We're doing a second series of that, so Jason's in the middle of drawing that. Stillwater with Skybound. Ramon.
Just so
Ramon's
good.
awesome.
Yeah.
He's so good on it.
Plus, that book. Sorry to interrupt you, but that book, I feel like you've taken turns in that. Especially you're doing so many things to take the time to really be like, I'm going to do a bunch of swerves over here that I have to think about. It's really cool.
I'm glad you like that because, those are fun to write, and we have the big swerve coming up in issue 12, which I'm super excited for, which has been kind of in the outline from the beginning. Let's see, Daredevil. Even though issue 36 is the last issue of Daredevil, that's stupid. We're continuing Daredevil. That was one of those things where it's like, because we're doing this Marvel event, Devil's Reign, and I kind of said to my editor, I'm like, well, this is the Daredevil book. Like, it's myself and Marco, and it's a continuation of that story with major ramifications for the character. So what am I supposed to do over in the Daredevil title? Like, let's just stop publishing it and then start it again at the end of Devil's Reign. He's like, okay, that sounds good. And then Marvel puts out a press release. Final issue of Daredevil, issue 36. I'm like, what? Oh, God. So Daredevil is back after... Yeah, Daredevil's back after Devil's Reign wraps. I'm doing an Elektra miniseries that's running alongside Devil's Reign because there was too much story for her in Devil's Reign, so I wanted to make sure we had some space for that.
This already feels like too much, this list.
Yeah, it's a bit much. I got another miniseries from Marvel that it's a slow one because the artist is taking their time on it. They're on issue 2 right now, and I don't think I need to give a script for issue 3 for another 3 months. But that's gonna be cool. It's one of those ones where my favorite editor in the world, Tom Brevoort, who I did Life Story with in Marvel 2-in-1, he approached me about this, an idea he's been kicking around for years, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm in. So that's gonna be fun. Cool. And then over at DC, I'm doing a Batman book called The Knight. With Carmine Di Giancarnado. I'm so bad at his name. It's a 10-issue mini maxi series about Bruce Wayne traveling the world, learning from the masters to become Batman, and that's been a lot of fun.
That sounds awesome.
Kind of rewriting and integrating kind of past stories of his relationships with the people who trained him, and coming up with new figures, and it's been a lot of fun. Issue 1 of that is probably my favorite thing I've written. It's a lot of fun.
Wow.
I can't wait for that.
Yeah.
Justin, are you taking out a pad so you can write down all this stuff?
Just trying to, I'm gonna write down. See, I was like, write a list of stuff you're doing. Interesting idea.
It's funny. I told my wife I would say no to everything from here on out. Because I just kind of want to pare back and I would just do Daredevil and just do some creator own, and that's it. And then just before I got on here, I was having dinner with her, and I was just like, so I've got an idea for a comic. And the look on her face was just like, I'm never seeing you again. Yeah, I pitched a comic idea to another comic writer and an artist today, and I'm just like, I'm waiting for them to say yes, and I'm hoping they say no. because I'm too stupid.
Well, I don't know
Oh,
which
man.
way to hope, but I'm very
Well.
excited about all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And Newburn is awesome. I can't wait
Cool,
for people
thanks.
to see it
Congrats.
tomorrow. Chip,
you.
So
thank
good.
you so much for coming back on the show. It was
Yeah,
good seeing
thanks
you.
for having me.
Great
Good seeing you
chatting
too.
with
All right.
All right.
See you soon, man. Good luck.
All
Take
right,
care.
there we go. Once again, Chip
Oh, man.
Zdarsky. The book is called Newburn. It's from Image Comics, and it comes out tomorrow, and it is great.
That guy's
You're gonna love it.
hilarious.
Yeah, and doing a lot of stuff.
Too
Doing a
much,
lot.
man.
Too much,
Too
man.
much.
What? What just happened?
What?
Huh?
Justin, you said something, then we didn't hear you.
I
We
said
stopped,
feels
like-
busy.
Oh, feels busy. Oh, there we go. I'm glad we stopped the show for that.
Yeah.
We're going to continue with our next section, which is my favorite section because you all make it up. It's your audience question. And for audience questions, all you have to do is drop a question either in the comments
Just
over on
ask
YouTube
one.
or ask a question over here on Crowncast. We've already talked about what we're drinking, which is usually what we kick this off with. But anybody drinking anything new? No? Pete?
Still the same. I had a full pour of this, and I'm really enjoying it.
I have some backup over here, and I'm already getting a little schnocker.
Oh,
Why don't we-
he's, what did I call it last week when he's a full? I forget. Dr. Zalbin has entered the frame or something. That's
I don't know.
Too many bits to keep track of.
Too many bits to keep track of. Let's go to the question here. This is from Jolene. Since rereading so many 90s comics, I've noticed all superheroes look cooler with jackets. What hero that hasn't previously worn a jacket would you like to see wear a jacket? I'll tell you what, before we get into specifics, I'll mention this is my big hesitation with Eternals, honestly, is because you got Dane Whitman,
no
Black
jackets?
Knight. You got Dane Whitman, Black Knight. You got Cersei. Two characters famous for wearing those
Famously
short
jacketed.
little Avengers jackets.
Right.
sleeves
With the
rolled up.
rolled up sleeves.
I'm a
As far as I've
roller upper, so
seen, I mean, I've only seen the trailers and everything, but no jackets. Real bummer.
Yeah. I mean, they probably took the
That movie's going to be a failure.
Where are the jackets? Screams the audience. I mean, shouts to like Rogue, the ultimate jacketed
Oh,
hero.
yeah.
I feel like.
Mhm.
I mean,
Gambit also. I mean,
It's cold out there.
My son, we're going very far. afield,
90s
but my
Superboy, yes. Jean Jacket.
Yeah. My
famously.
son asked me about Rogue this weekend. He was doing a superhero crossword, like find the word puzzle. And he was like, what are Rogue's powers? And I was like, oh, wait until I tell you. This is really fucked up.
oh my
But
god,
it
you should grab your son and like, let me tell you.
You Rogue.
You grabbed him by
Wanna
his
hear about
jacket.
Rogue?
and-
Yeah, I grabbed him by the short sleeves of his jacket. Who would look better with the jacket, though? That was actually the original question.
Well, who hasn't worn a jacket
Mm.
at one point? I feel like that was definitely a design thing for so long. Superman, you don't see in a jacket very often.
Yeah. Does Superboy, 90s Superboy, count as Superman in a jacket, though?
No, totally different. Power set, he had tactile telekinesis, obviously. I think we're all aware
sure.
of that.
Obviously.
Do I talk about that enough? No.
Spider-Man? Spider-Man wearing a jacket?
Wore a jacket, a clone Spidey
Yeah,
wore a
the
jacket
clone
for a while.
Spider-Man,
That's
yeah.
right. Ben Reilly, are you talking about the hoodie? That's a hoodie, not a jacket.
No, yes, that, but also there was a jacket being
There was a
worn
jacket. Yeah.
Okay.
by one of those characters for a while.
Punisher? Punisher with a nice short sleeve jacket?
Don't.
Pete?
Oh, like
Yeah.
a windbreaker.
No, Punisher had a bunch of different cool jackets.
jean jacket?
None.
A jean jacket with sequin skulls on it?
Yeah, he had a
Well, like a
starter
members
jacket for a
only
while.
jacket.
Yeah, members only. Yeah.
With a couple bullets in the pocket, and you could see him through the jacket.
I do agree with Jolene there that Ben Grimm with a jacket just better.
Interesting.
He did have a jacket for a while, but didn't he wear a jacket when he had the helmet over his face after his face was messed up by Wolverine? I want to say.
Yeah, maybe. It was messed up by Wolverine. I don't remember whether he had a jacket, though. Definitely had a mask, though. I remember that.
Yeah, that was a weird time in the 90s. I feel like, I mean, the problem with superhero jackets is the cape takes the place of a lot of jackets. Cape, a famously horrible jacket, wind gets right underneath that thing.
Oh, yeah.
Not going to keep you warm.
I'd love to see the Thing with a cape, though. That would be fun. Totally inappropriate.
Just standing around in a loose cape.
Just as rocks fluttering in the wind. It would be a rock cape, is what it would be.
I don't think rocks flutter in the wind.
I don't know. I'm a geologist.
Rocky
so
cape. That's true.
Here, this is. Bye, Pete. Pete's out of here. This is from The Big over on YouTube. Have you guys seen the animated version of The Long Halloween? Thoughts? Pete, I feel like if anybody's seen it, you're probably the most likely you've actually watched some of those movies.
I would. Thank you for the rec. I'll go check that out.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
I know I've said this before. I'm not super into the animated.
Here we go.
Well, I'm not super into the DC animated movies. I know a lot of people like them, but just because they don't have the look of the comic book, I feel like I would rather. With something like that, Tim Sale, for example, is so iconic in his look.
Right.
To see something that is relatively generic animation, not interested.
Wait, you're saying they made an animated and didn't use Tim Sale's art? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Oh. That is what I
Well, they have to have other artists draw the animate. They can't just take the pictures from the comic and somehow animate them.
Well, why wouldn't you just give Tim Sale a bunch of money to kind of
I don't think he does that. But I agree with you, Alex. And a lot of times I feel like with those adaptations, it's sort of like, let's take this great story and cut it down into a format that we want to just do for this. And it ends up sort of short shrifting the story, I feel like.
Well, I'm with Pete about this, that I feel like it is the sort of thing where you could maybe take a look at Tim Sale's art, get somebody who is more of a iconic animator, or somebody who is like, okay, I'm going to take the style, we're going to work in this style and figure it out. That would be really interesting. I don't think, frankly, it would work as well or make as much money, and certainly not be as quick or easy to make. And that's probably the reasons for why they don't do it.
That was like 9 reasons why not to do it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why. Like, they're sending it off to an animation studio somewhere. They're doing it with mostly the same voices and a couple of like B or C level celebrities doing the voices of Batman and Superman for most of this stuff. And they're probably serviceable.
Yeah,
well, no, they're probably serviceable and good.
Down.
Fucking shots fired. Don't be an asshole.
But that's the sort of thing somebody wants to be like, that was cool, and turn that on HBO Max, and that's it. I don't think they necessarily want to be challenged by something that has a art style that they spent millions of dollars on over the course of 5 years to make. You know, that's not. That's not.
Don't
what they're
make Long
to do
Halloween
here.
Then. You know what I mean? Like, if you're gonna make it, fucking make it.
It's an industry, though. Like, they announced this at DC Fandom. They ran through 5 or 6 animated movies that are coming up based on storylines, some original, some not. And that's what they're trying to get out there, because there is an audience for that. They know that. And it's not that it's necessarily cheap to make, but it's cost effective is probably the way of saying it.
Boo.
Well, just people want to watch those animated movies and TV shows. Like, there's just a huge market for those, so they want to keep feeding that. And it makes sense. Like, a lot of people who don't read comics want these stories, so like, I'm for making them. But I just think there needs to be a little bit more time and creative energy put into the development of them.
Yeah. This is from Stray Bullet over on Crowdcast. Given the stigma around the Punisher symbol now, is there any way to pull it back to nerdom and lose the militaristic bad law enforcement stigma? Jerry Conway made an attempt to acclaim it for a BLM fundraiser, but I still have to explain to new employees that my Punisher apron isn't a nod to rogue cops and lawless military. I also miss the Punisher having a series. Who should write a new series and save the Punisher, or is the Punisher a bygone character? First of all, Stray Bullet, just want to recommend to you, having your apron stuffed with so many guns is probably part of what's giving them the wrong impression.
That's the worry. Yeah.
And that your sous chef is named Microchip. That's another problem.
Oh, well, yeah.
And a lot of, instead of actually cutting
it's
up,
cooking guns.
instead of butchering,
normal guns. It's cooking guns.
Cooking guns, yeah.
We all have to get our jokes out.
We all want to say our jokes. Instead of butchering your meat, you're just lighting it up with an Uzi, which is, while it does cook it a little bit as you
oh, man. You ever had a lightly Uzi'd meat? It's just you really taste
medium rare on all the different spots.
Yeah. The 6 taste is Uzami.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
go to
that's
sleep,
the joke
Dad.
we shouldn't have let out.
Go to sleep.
That's the one we should have stopped at.
Oh, man. Well, that's tough. I mean,
Oh, Stray Bullet says never mind.
no, but it's hard because as someone who does rock Punisher stuff out in the public, it is a conversation, and you do get dirty looks, and I don't want to go around being like, cops are awesome, look at my skull. That's not, it sucks that something you love got taken and put other places. But it is important that the people who are passionate about it still kind of be like, don't fucking yuck my yum. Don't try to. I'm not making this statement. I'm making this statement. So
don't yuck my yum, cops. Well, let me say, Jolene's comment, I think, is apt here. I think it's probably too hard to take something that was co-opted by horrible people. And I agree. It is hard to take something back, especially in the short term. In the long term, if it eventually fades away from that, from being a symbol of that, then maybe. But I would also say, like, Pete, you wearing a Punisher t-shirt to me doesn't have the same connotation as seeing someone with a pin or a bumper sticker. That feels like they're trying to say something, when you feel like there are people wearing Punisher t-shirts feels more comic book. Because I can't imagine a cop wearing a Punisher t-shirt being like, this is me. It feels like much more of a subtle thing, because that's part of the sort of symbolism, is a little like a nod. It's about the subtlety and the sort of insidious nature of it.
Well, and I do think part of this is going to sound very dumb, but part of taking it back is taking it back. Just you wearing the Punisher t-shirt and being a good guy, Pete, and talking to people and explaining it to them. That is part of it. It's not going to combat the greater negative necessarily, but it's going to chip away at a little bit person by person, and that's part of the way of doing it. Go ahead, Justin.
I was just going to say, and it's like, it's too bad. Like, this is someone, a character that I know, Pete, you really like, and something, and to have people take it and identify it for all the wrong reasons about being like, and again, I guess I'm sort of speaking for you, Pete, because I do think the Punisher's too violent, and that's, I think, is what all of these people who are taking that symbol, because it is a lot of cops, but it's a lot of other people who are being like, I like being violent because I'm above the law. And I think what the Punisher, there's a little bit more nuance and subtlety to it throughout the run, and some of it is about like trauma and like America and what it means. He becomes like a sort of avatar for the violence of America when it comes to
it's
crime.
Like, fine, I'll just wear a t-shirt that says I hate picnics, if that's what we really have to do now. You know what I mean?
Honestly, that's a pretty good idea, because I know you hate eating outside on a blanket too.
Yeah. You know what we could do is we could make a t-shirt that's the skull shape, but it says I hate picnics.
Yeah.
And it kind of looks like a skull. Now I have to do that, right? All right, I'll make myself do it.
That's how this works.
Add that to our t-shirt, our underserved merch department.
Yeah.
I hate picnics.
Threadless.com/comic book club. There's a bunch of weird stuff there.
Yeah. A lot of inside jokes.
Truly, our merch is only one-off jokes we've told on this random podcast over the years. Occasionally, I'll be like, "Oh, remember this T-shirt?" And I'm like, I barely know what that means. I have one about Phil Collins that I'm just like,
yeah, I don't even.
I think that was from the Deadly Class podcast. I've had my
Phil Donahue.
I've had my Phil Donahue. Is that what it is?
I can't get my Phil Donahue or something like that. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Because I actually like the shirt. It's a really nice design. Shouts to Alex. It's a funny T-shirt, even if you don't know what it means. But I'm struggling to remember what it means, and I was definitely there for it.
Yeah.
I get a lot of weird looks with my Wahhabis T-shirt on.
That's you, though. That is something that is intrinsically Pete LePage.
Yeah, it's a lot to explain, though.
Over on YouTube, got a comment from God Loves Comics. League of Legends has a new Netflix animated series coming out, Arcane, that looks visually amazing, but computer animation, of course. Oh, there's a little discussion about animation going on here. By the way, I'll mention I've seen the first couple of episodes of Arcane, and thoughts are embargoed until it comes out.
Ooh.
Michael Lynch says, what's the wackiest weird ideas from comics y'all think would be cool to be seen on the big screen?
Interesting. Weird ideas. Some of the stuff
weird
that
ideas.
is unlikely to make the transition to the big screen.
I mean, I'm surprised Eternals is a movie. For me, that was always like a weird thing that Marvel did that I didn't understand and was never one of my favorites. So I was just like very surprised that it's a movie.
I can see that. I think there's been a lot of discussion over the past couple of weeks about Jack Kirby stuff in general and how, because it's so visual and so insanely world building, it doesn't inherently translate into specifically movies, maybe TV, just because you're stretching out the storytelling a little bit and there's a little more room. But something like that or New Gods, I think it's a little tricky. Two that I throw out that they haven't quite gotten yet, though certainly Marvel's been leaning into the first one a little bit. First two thoughts that came to mind were Howard the Duck is weird, and Squirrel Girl.
Haven't we? But Squirrel Girl, yes, I'll give you that. Howard the Duck. Are they jamming Howard the Duck down our throats at this point? Like they've
teased it a bunch of times.
They have teased it.
They even teased. He's in all this. He shows up all the time. He's drinking a martini. He's not doing anything. I'm like, we get the whole Howard the Duck thing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is if we're talking about like a full-on, actual new modern Howard the Duck movie, that would be a stretch. Yeah. That would be tricky for them to do correctly. I think using our guest Chip Zdarsky, they could certainly use his run as a model.
100%. Yeah,
but it would be tough. Pete's not into it. He's got to get. Oh, there he is.
Let me throw this out here, and this will make Pete leave for sure. Like, give me a real comic booky X-Men. That is weird. That will be weird, even if it's the current run, where we're getting into all of that stuff, or almost any era of the X-Men is not easy to be like, this is a movie. No problem. I can tell all these stories. Look at the X-Men movies. They're obtuse in ways that have made them fall out of like what we rewatch as fans for comic book movies. So like, give me a real X-Men story that you can make work where the characters get to be weird and themselves, and it isn't about posturing and being cool, because I feel like that's so much what the X-Men have been in any other platform outside of comics.
Let me ask you guys, are you going to go see Eternals this weekend?
I'm going to go see it on Thursday.
Saturday night, baby. Already have tickets.
Yeah. You're not seeing it, Pete?
Well, no, I got big plans this weekend.
If you don't support Marvel, that it might go away.
Pete, what could you possibly be planning above Eternals that you would have to go see?
Well, it's my Aunt Marge's 80th birthday party this weekend.
Ooh, she's an Eternal.
The Ra-Cha-Cha to get my fill on garbage plates, baby.
Yeah. Do you know what's going to happen there? You're going to get there, and she's going to be like, I need to go see Kingo in action. My favorite Eternal, Kingo.
Yeah. I definitely know what you're talking about. Pete, how many garbage plates do you think you're going to eat this weekend? And
minimum
if it's 0,
3.
That's fine.
Minimum 3.
Minimum 3. Now, that's considered a meal, though, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to be half of your meals while you're there?
Is that one day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or are we talking several days?
Yeah, we're talking, I'm going to be there, 3 nights. So it's every night once I'm drunk enough. Boom, garbage.
Oh, you're talking a late night. You're talking a 4th meal. A hashtag Taco Bell's 4th meal of garbage plate.
That's right.
Great. That's very. Because when you said I'm going to eat these for 3 meals, I'm like, a breakfasting on a garbage plate is truly raccoon behavior. That's truly, I'm eating out of a trash bin.
I'm not above it. There's no way.
Is there a breakfast garbage plate? Does that exist?
I'm sure someplace has it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's called Any Hotel Buffet.
Fair enough. This is from Kevin. Says, what's a title you love where you hate the main character or characters?
Ooh, great question.
X-Men a lot of time.
What do you like then?
I mean, the one that I'd say, not to come directly for you, Pete, is Punisher. Just because there's been some fantastic runs of Punisher, I'm not disposed to like the character, but I'll read stuff and say, this is really, really good.
Yeah, that's my favorite, when you're enjoying Punisher and you kind of like hate yourself for it a little bit.
Also, Spawn recently, the King Spawn thing, great. Not particularly into Spawn. I still don't know what his deal is, but that title's very good.
I guess, yeah, I read Spawn for the clock. I just like
yeah, you do. Love a countdown clock.
Love a count. I'm going to throw out Batman. I feel like
What?
I like the supporting characters. I like the Bat family, especially in recent years, so much more than I like Batman because they have more personality. They have both positive sides and negative sides to their personality, and Batman is always going through it to the point where I'm like, I've seen this person doing the same thing.
You're over Batman is basically what you're saying.
Well, I'm just over that, like Batman being this joyless person. It's like if I had to drink gravy at every meal, I'd be like, I hate gravy. But I like the dessert where I get to have lovely
yeah, if you get to drink gravy every couple of meals, that's a delicious treat, is what you're saying?
Oh, man.
Yeah, I love starting the day with a full glass of hot gravy. That's my garbage plate.
I love that you guys love on me for being like, oh, what do you eat? When
Here's the thing, Alex. We joke, you eat it. You eat the stuff that you like to eat, that you talk about. Like
I eat what I want. Yeah. Okay, let's go over to YouTube. We got Nelson Martinez says, oh, here we go. For Justin and Pete, what's your favorite episode of Why the Zalb's Man?
Oh, man. Yes.
I mean, the origin has got to be my favorite.
Yeah?
When he fully took on the mantle of Zalb, because he was a mild-mannered non-Zalb. Yeah. Well, I'm trying to put this together.
Yeah.
And then he was like, you know what, I'm going to be a mild. Like his manner got more mild. He milded his manner.
Yep. I remember that. That was a good episode. This is from Jolene over on Crowdcast.
You don't want us to explore this any further.
Yeah, you want this to keep going?
Stretch it out. Since I've been listening to the Sandman audiobooks, do you think the Netflix series will keep all the DC Universe stuff that is present in the story? As for those who don't know or haven't read Sandman in a while, it started off as a DC comic book before it moved into Vertigo. It was one of the launch titles for Vertigo. And when that transition happened, it was this weird thing where they kind of hung on to some stuff that they could still use, some of the more adult characters. But then things that didn't necessarily work for the first volume, they left behind. There was, I think, Martian Manhunter shows up at one point. Superman is in it. There's the Etrigan, the demon, did actually stick around, I think. And Our Man, right? Lito Hall is actually a pretty big character going through the entire series. So there are things that they hung on to there, but it was only the things they could. My guess is... And Justin, you're sort of our Sandman expert, so please weigh in. But my guess is they may hang on to things like Lita Hall, but you're not necessarily going to get a Superman showing up or anything like that.
That'd be my guess as well. Like that's an easy thing because you want with something like that, you want to keep it contained. And if you start to open it up out the comic books, it makes sense why you're sort of reaching out a little bit. Something like this, especially as iconic as it is, you want to keep it contained into its own space.
Yeah. I mean, that said, DC has been really pushing the idea of a multiverse and that you can have multiple versions of the character. So having a version of Dr. Fate, it's Dr. Fate, right? Who is in Sandman, showing up and then also showing up in the Black Adam movie. It seems like that goes with their anything goes policy. So it's possible. But maybe, I think I guess confuse people.
Yeah. And what fan base wants that? Neither of them is like, yes, they've connected. Like Sandman fans are Sandman fans and not necessarily cross superhero genre comic book fans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess we'll have to see what happens. It's definitely an interesting question. We got one last one here. This is a good one from YouTube. This is from Corey Chichari. Been following the show for a few years, hearing about garbage plates, but have never actually learned what it is. What is a garbage plate?
That's a great question. And honestly, I think
every once in a while we get this question.
Before Pete answers, Alex, I think you and I should try to lay it out. Don't cheat. Don't cheat. Let's go back and forth, Alex. You and I naming ingredients that we think is.
I'll tell you if it's in the garbage plate or not.
Okay. Am I going first?
Yes. Right.
French fries.
Yep.
Macaroni.
What kind of macaroni are we talking about here?
Oh God. I don't know. Cooked.
Yeah. No, but you're saying like mac salad? Are you saying like macaroni
salad?
Cheese?
Macaroni salad.
Yeah,
yes,
macaroni salad. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Ground beef.
Yep.
A lot of ketchup.
Yep.
That one was that was a reach on my part. I can't believe that's true.
Cheese?
Yep.
Okay.
We're just guessing garbage. We're guessing actual garbage. I am going to
will you tell us when we're done, by the way?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
When we finish. I'm going to throw out beans.
Yeah, beans.
What?
Good.
Oh,
you get beans.
Random. I love it's just random beans. No necessary. Please don't be more
baked
specific.
beans.
Yeah. Oh, we have a correction here. Is it cheese curds specifically?
No.
Oh, that's poutine.
Yeah,
I think what she's thinking.
And that's Buffalo in Canada, but Rochester not so much.
Yeah,
that's
all right. So I'll break it down. Enough of you guys fucking around here. So for your
hot
base,
sauce.
For your base, you have a lot of
Snickers.
Options.
That's a guess.
Snickers bars.
No Snickers bars.
Okay? Oh, I know. Old lettuce that is brown.
Nope. No.
A diaper? Oh, it's served in a diaper.
It's
served in a
diaper.
Garbage
plate. That's a different.
Oh, I confuse these.
Aunt Marge? Is it Aunt Marge?
Don't you disrespect Aunt Marge. Don't you fucking do it. I will.
Is Aunt Marge, just real quick, you're not going to take this the wrong way. Is Aunt Marge going to do one of those things like you put sushi on a naked lady? But
oh my God. If I could punch you in the face right now, I would. I'm going to fucking text your wife. All right. Fuck you, man. I'm going to fucking text your wife and have her slap you across the face for that shit. Because that's
it's
fucking
called body
bullshit.
Sushi. It's
all
called
right,
body
that's
sushi.
Fucking bullshit.
This is
a
body garbage.
Go fuck yourself with that. How dare you disrespect Aunt Marge? You son of a bitch.
Honestly,
I hope you die tomorrow, Zal. I hope your fucking family has to live without a father.
That's respecting her. If she's a Rochester, a true Rochester resident, she knows that dying underneath a garbage plate is the way everyone wants to go out.
How dare you? How dare you? Take that back, you son of a bitch.
Wait, you were listing the ingredients.
She's a beautiful woman that I would love to see covered in garbage.
Don't you dare.
We're very clear.
Well, now you got to do the show by yourself.
Aunt Marge is not an ingredient in a garbage plate, but please finish the ingredients in the garbage plate.
No, Pete.
He didn't mean it. He didn't mean it. Well, he can't even hear you, so it doesn't matter. Okay. But he's just looking at his phone.
Oh, no. Now he's just looking for sports scores.
Let me be honest. Yeah. I haven't laughed that hard in quite some time.
What do you think? Is Pete going to come back? I'm sorry.
Pete, he's sorry.
I am. Oh, Pete's turning around. He put on his hoodie. Oh, he's left. Oh my God. Wait, are you actually?
He separately texted us, "Fuck you."
Oh.
Yeah, he's texting your wife right now.
I think she's coming downstairs. I'm sorry.
Imagine we see Alex's wife come down and slap him really hard. Yes,
I am.
He's sorry.
I'm sorry.
We were just making a joke. It's fun. It's all for fun.
Yes.
No disrespect.
You fucking call your wife, man, when you're acting up, man. This is fucking bullshit.
Since when is this a policy we do? We call each other's partners to tell on them?
If you're acting up, there's no one else to keep you in line. If I'm live in a theater with you, I can fucking rein you in, but he's in his own
You're gonna
world.
You're gonna call Alex's wife and be like, punch him in the stomach right now. And you think she's gonna be like, okay, and just come down.
Also, Pete, the amount of explanation you're gonna have to give her. By that point, the show's over.
Be worth it.
And let me throw this out, Pete. As someone who is out of line a lot, watch out. This could really come back on you.
What are you
I'm gonna call your wife. I'm gonna call my wife on you. Is what I'm gonna do. What else is in a garbage plate, Pete? Just to wrap this up.
So you can either get French fries. You can get baked beans. You can get macaroni salad. You can get hash browns. Okay, that's just
browns.
the base.
I should have known that.
Okay,
anything could be garbage.
Then it could be, you could get 2 white hots on there. You could get 2 red hots. You could get 2 patties. You know, some places will do, you know, like chicken breast, stuff like that. But that's kind of not what normally happens.
If I said,
is that
hey,
like the light version? The light version
Yeah.
of the garbage plate is with 2 chicken breasts.
And then
like that's for save that for
the cheese would be the American cheese on the cheeseburger.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do ketchup, mustard, but you can do other types of condiments.
White and red
hot sauce. The hot sauce is a specialty hot sauce that has meat in it, and it's in this giant stew that kind of simmers all day, and that kind of seasons the meat. And you dump that over everything, and then you get 2 slices of French bread. You kind of
Let me ask you, Pete. Were people worried about not getting enough meat, and they were like, "We got to get some meat in the hot sauce"?
Well, if you're gonna make a hot sauce, you know what I mean, and it's gonna be a real hot sauce, you got to put some meat in there.
And there's a question: what are white and red hots? And those are hot dogs. And let me say, Pete, would I be laughed out of town if I just wanted only 1 hot dog to go on the top of my stack of meats and cheeses?
They would tell you to leave.
Wow.
Get out of Rochester, and I'd be like, "Thank you. I've been wanting to get out of here for quite some time."
I've just been waiting for someone to tell me to get out of here.
It's like the riddle to get out of town is like misorder a garbage plate, and like you can leave, sir. Thank God.
Some people are asking the difference between a white and a red hot. White hot is more kind of like an Italian sausage. It's a little bit more. It's got kind of like a little bit more spice and flavor to it.
I've done a lot of research on this because I grew up in Syracuse where we call them conies, and I moved to like basically Coney Island, and they were like, "We don't know what that is." I was like, "We've been fooled in my town for so long."
Waggles.
It's almost like a vice wurst. It's like a hot dog shaped vice wurst, a little spicier. You can get them. You can get them at Wegmans. I found them at Wegmans here in New York.
Wegmalandos.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, folks, we're going to move on with our next section, which is trivia. And for that, we're going to turn it over to Pete LePage.
All right.
Pete LePage.
The trivia that almost didn't happen. Here we go. Do we have a person for this, or are we?
We sure do. We've got, wait, I'm just making sure I invited the right person. We got Michael Bramwell, who I've invited into the stream right now. He's going to do trivia with us today and compete for a $25 Midtown gift card.
That's right.
Compete with Pete.
$25 free dollars.
Hello.
Gift card. Comments online. Hello. Welcome. Great to have you.
Welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh. Thanks for being here, Pete.
Yes. All right. So today's trivia is on topical comic news and a small nod to the legend Mort Saul. Here we go. Please listen to all 3 options before making your selection. Question number 1. What comic book publisher just started a union for its workers? Is it A, Marvel, B, Image, or is it C, Carrie Boucher? So it's either A, Marvel,
discussed
not yet,
earlier in the
B,
show.
Image.
Yeah, I do remember from earlier in the show. It is B, Image.
All right.
Yes.
Nice.
Here we go. Question number 2. What character will be celebrating 50 years next year and starring in the title A Year of Vengeance? Is it A, Stiltman, B, Ghost Rider, or is it C, Fred Willard? So it's either A, Stiltman, or B, Ghost Rider.
I'm going with B, Ghost Rider.
March.
Congratulations.
The Stilt of Vengeance, starring Nicolas Cage.
Here we go. Last one. What comic is coming out December 7th from the writer and artist Jacques? Is it A, Batman One Dark Night, B, Batman One Random Tuesday Afternoon, or is it C, Ileana Douglas? So it's either A, which makes sense, or you could be completely wrong.
I'll go with A then.
A is correct. $25 is yours.
Nice.
Congratulations.
Shouts.
Congratulations. We'll get that gift card off to you. Now, do you have a guess about the secret movie that Pete was teasing in his third answers?
Oh, not at all.
All
All
right.
right. Well, it was
You made the right
Max
choice.
Rose.
What was it?
Max Rose.
Max Rose. So what's the plot of that movie, real quick, Pete?
Well, it's basically the character is dying, and he's kind of, going through his life and kind of like living and learning and kind of, appreciating what he had. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's great. That's great stuff. Michael, congratulations. We'll get that
Good
gift card off to you. Thanks for jumping in.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for
Congrats.
listening.
All right, there we go. And if you want to compete for a $25 gift card, we have a link that we will send out on Twitter. Also, we dropped it in the chat here. And as we all know, new comic books are coming out all the time. What are you guys looking forward to, Pete?
I'm looking forward to. There's a lot of great stuff coming out, but one of them that I'm looking forward to is a thing called Truth Number 1.
From Image Comics.
Yeah.
Anything you want to say about that in particular? Or?
Yeah, it's really good. You guys should check it out.
Great, thanks.
We're
Justin,
going to
what
talk about
you?
in the stack. So
I
stay
know.
tuned.
Okay.
Yeah, he usually says that at the end. I'm going to give it up for Silver Coin number 6.
Oh, dude.
Truly, it's a horror anthology comic where a different creative team comes in, does a great standalone horror story, and man, every issue has been good, and they do not shy away from making it horrifying. This issue, I assume, will not be any different.
Yeah. I'm going to give a shout out to The Human Target. Number 1 is a new title from Tom King, so that's always a interesting event. Excited to
give
check
that
out
guy
and
some
see.
love.
Yeah, I hope we got to give that guy some big ups because nobody's paying attention to his work. And that's exactly what we're going to do on this week's Stack podcast, which rolls out Wednesday at 9 a.m. in the Comic Book Club feed and also in its own dedicated Stack feed. And folks, that's it for this week's show. Want to thank our guest Chip Zdarsky for being here. Check out Newburn out from Image Comics tomorrow. It really, really is great. Next week on the show, Matthew Rosenberg is going to be back to talk about his new Image Comics book, What's the Furthest Place from Here? So always very excited to talk to him. Also, bunch of stuff to plug. As we mentioned earlier, Why the Cast Man, our Why the Last Man podcast. Talk to Eliza Clark, the showrunner, to talk down everything about season 1 and maybe season 2, so check that out. Also, Lock and Key Unlocked, our Lock and Key podcast, finished up season 2, but we got one more podcast with you. What? We taped with the showrunner of Lock and Key, Meredith Averill. Great chat with her. That's
Fan of the show.
Yes. This is going to be coming very soon. Also, Star Guys, our Stargirl podcast, is wrapping up as of tonight. We'll have that episode out soon. And many, many more podcasts are coming your way. Patreon.com/Comic Book Club. Support the show and all the shows we do. iTunes, Android, Spotify, Stitcher, or the app of your choice to subscribe, listen, and follow. Don't forget to leave us a question in the iTunes reviews. We will be sure to review Alan Moore's Swamp Thing. We got to read some Swamp Thing coming up very soon. At Comic Book Live on Twitter, Comic Book Club Live on Instagram, comicbookclublive.com for this podcast and many more. Until next time, good night.
Good night, everybody. Shazam, Marge. Happy birthday. She listens. She loves the show. She'll love this conversation.
She'll be like, I have some ideas.